everyone. Well, it's not evening yet, half hour from now. Welcome to everyone who is here for the Cultural Commission's meeting for July 25, 2022. So the public, as many of you have heard over and over, may make comment in advance of a meeting in written submission or the following email. You got the email addresses and so on and so on. Public comment during a meeting is limited to 3 minutes to each speaker, just so everybody knows. So call to order, roll call, please.
Chair Daneo.
Present.
Vice Chair Scott. Present. Commissioner Aboud. Present. Commissioner Jones. Here. Commissioner Leva. Present. Commissioner Mowers. Here. Commissioner Drysdale. Here. A quorum's present.
We have a full house. Yay! So at this point, public comments. You all know the 3 minute. Is there anybody in the public who would wish to make a comment at this point in time? Oh, our birthday boy. We're going to embarrass Dan. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Just for the record, it's I'm Dan Arp, Recreation Superintendent with Carson City Parks Recreation Open Space. Just a quick announcement that we do have our job posting for the Recreation Program Supervisor for the Arts and Culture Program is open right now. So we're currently recruiting. So if you guys know anybody who would be interested in applying, please send them our way. We're hoping to review those applications here pretty soon and try and get interviews scheduled the next couple of weeks. So we're trying to move forward with that. So we're pretty excited that that's moving forward. So hopefully we'll see some progress there before the next meeting.
Do you have a time frame, a cutoff?
It's just open recruitment.
Just open.
Yeah, until we kind of, get a good pool of candidates and find the right person.
And where are you putting this announcement?
We've posted, wherever our Human Resources Department posted it, and then we also posted it through the National Parks and Recreation Association. And then, I can't remember if there was, I think we had asked about if we were open to suggestions, if you know of any art-related places that we should be posting it that we haven't, we would be happy to do so.
Anyone want to give him some suggestions? I think it ought to go countrywide.
Well, the NRPA, the National Parks and Recreation Association, is our national recreation organization for the whole country. So that is going to get national, but more on the recreation side. So if you know of the national art side things, we'd be happy to hear about it.
You want to add anything? No.
I will think on it.
Okay, and get back to us. All right, thanks, Dan. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, first item for us all. Let's approve the minutes from the last meeting. With one, what?
Karen Aboud for the record. Under 5A, 1, 2, 3, number 4, the dot down, environmental art demonstration project artwork, the word should be group, or let's see, was pulled out of, and the something stolen, the word's spelt wrong. Whatever that's supposed to be is incorrect. It said grown and stolen. So I'm
Signed.
okay. But with that, I move to approve with that correction.
Is there a second? Any other comments? Okay, on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. That was a good set of minutes, except for one spelling. It was wonderful. We are now on item number 5A. For discussion only, presentation regarding an update on the arts and culture program activities since the last Carson CCC Commission meeting in June. I didn't do it. As well as an update on the program delivery. And that will be Deborah, please.
Thank you. Deborah Soul for the record. Well, an update on arts and culture program activities since our last meeting. Probably the biggest item to report on was the Great Western Steam Up. I'm hoping that most of you had a chance to take that in. It was a tremendous success. Over 7,500 tickets were sold, which was beyond what they were hoping for. We had people arrive from all over the country, including some from Florida, New York State, There were attendees from Canada, some from Europe, and some from Australia. So we drew quite a crowd for that. All of our lodging properties were full for that weekend. And we're in the midst of doing a post-event survey at the Tourism Authority. So far, there's over 400 survey completions that have come in, and we're still doing a second and a tertiary round that's going to go out soon. So we'll probably have lots of really interesting feedback on that event, which was clearly the biggest event that we've ever held here in Carson City, perhaps aside from the Nevada Day Parade events. So that was a great success. I also wanted to tell you about the cultural maps that I've been working on and off for the past few months. The first draft of the cultural asset map has actually been created now. It's not live yet, but it will be available at some point soon on the Visit Carson City website and made available to the city if they wish to include it as well. The Art on the Trails experience, planning for that is progressing. I've been working away with negotiations on leaders for each of our 4 art workstations that we'll have on the trail. That will include a plein air painting station, gourd art decorating, a basket weaving workshop led by a Great Basin artist, and another Great Basin artist will be leading either a natural jewelries making workshop or something similar. I'm not sure what that one will be. So that's coming along, and I will be working with the Parks and Rec Department on that as well. The Mind of Da Vinci interpretive sign, I also wanted to give an update on that. You were aware that it was ordered, designed and ordered several months ago. It's been completed, received by the Parks and Rec Department, and we're working on installation details now.
We should declare a holiday.
Right.
Yes.
And-
Do you know when that's going to be installed?
I don't have a date yet, no, but it shouldn't be too far in the distant future. And there's also been the first orientation meeting for the Mark Twain murals was held a few days ago. And that group is now exploring some possible locations for the mural. So that's really my update on activities since our last meeting. I also wanted to provide a bit of an introduction to the public art policy and how it fits in the scope of arts and culture program activities. And I have a bit of a few slides that I will read out that everyone can share in that information. So I'll talk about why a public art policy is required, how a public art policy fits within the arts and culture program and the program restructuring. I'll talk about the Cultural Commission's role in the public art policy, a snapshot of public art in our city. I have an inventory. I'll talk about the public art budget, and then I'll turn it over to Jen and Dan, who will talk about the policy and its content specifically. So why have we gone with the route of creating a public art policy? Well, first of all, the 2021 to 25 Carson City Strategic Plan in the Quality of Life and Community section, Engage Arts and Culture Assets, states that we will integrate public art into gateway improvements and other capital projects. We'll develop plans to improve the utilization of Mind of Da Vinci, and find a location to reuse the Roundhouse Arch. Secondly, the 2022 Carson City Arts and Culture Strategic Plan, under goal number 6, municipal planning, decision-making, and placemaking, incorporate culture into municipal planning, decision-making, and placemaking as a means to improve quality of life, enhance cultural tourism, economic development, and community problem solving. And 6.3 specifically states, prepare a public art policy and oversee a public art program for the creation and inclusion of artwork in public spaces that reflects the city's unique cultural heritage and identity, and to enhance our cityscape and the artistic richness of the capital city. And a third reason why? Best practice. Globally, public art policies and programs strengthen public art outcomes using tried and proven processes. And we've incorporated those best practices into this public art policy. And fourthly, there is general agreement by all parties that the public art policy is needed to clarify roles and processes prior to commencing in our major public art projects. So how does the public art policy fit into the city's recent arts and culture program restructuring? Well, the restructuring of the changes that have been made are currently being put in place are all part of a comprehensive restructuring to improve the overall arts and culture strategic plan implementation and to improve staffing structures and enhance arts and culture budget opportunities. So we will soon have 2 arts and culture positions in place. And in addition to the CTA Arts and Culture Program budget, there's been an increase in the redevelopment area funding for arts and culture, as we're aware, from $25,000 to $50,000. And once the city designates the Cultural Commission as the Carson City Local Arts Agency, the city will also be eligible to apply to the NEA for up to $150,000 annually for project funding and up to $100,000 annually for flow-through or sub-grant funding. This NEA funding is important because it will support the ongoing projects and events that have been funded under the Redevelopment Grant Fund, which is intended to now encourage new initiatives.
Okay, can we do comments, Barbara, for the record, along the way? This particular section right here, to me, is the justification for the Cultural Commission, is the reason why this needs to exist because of the NEA and the opportunity for these kinds of grants and so on. So I think that's really important that everybody know and understand that. Thanks.
Okay. Moving on to the next section here, how does the public art policy fit into the city's recent program restructuring? I just wanted to give an illustration here. The recent restructuring of the new position will manage the city-related aspects of arts and culture. So I will be working in partnership with this new position on most of the recommended activities in the implementation section of the Arts and Culture Strategic Plan. So this is I've just given you an illustration of one section of the implementation plan. And you can see here in the Who Should Lead column, in all of these activities on this page, it says both city staff and CTA, Culture and Tourism Authority staff. And in fact, more than 80% of all of the activities in this plan will be activities that we collaborate on. There are only 2 strategies in this plan that are city staff only, and there's only 2 that are CTA staff only in terms of the implementation process. So by far, the vast majority of these are collaborative activities in terms of both positions leading the implementation.
Okay.
I also wanted to show you specifically from the plan, we're looking at the 6.3 public art recommended activity, preparing the public art policy and overseeing the public art program. This is one of the activities in the strategic plan that cannot be delivered solely through the CTA position. It requires significant city involvement. The artwork will ultimately be owned, insured, and maintained, and often installed by the city. And my role will focus on the tourism aspects of arts and culture, and the new position will handle the city and the community-based aspects. So the Cultural Commission's role in public art, according to the 2008 ordinance, one of the powers and duties of the Cultural Commission is facilitating and promoting the establishment of an art in public places policy that supports the installation of publicly significant art installations and encourage the inclusion of public art components in private development. And according to the 2022 amended or adopted role and redefined functions, the Cultural Commission is to advise the Board of Supervisors on the acquisition and the Board of Supervisors installation of public art, and oversee the establishment of ad hoc public art panels for each public art project. Public art panels specifically will be created for each public art project and shall be appointed by the Cultural Commission. Each panel is specific to the public art project to which it is assigned and requires expertise that reflects the nature of that project. The Recreation Supervisor, the new position, will provide advice on the specific panel member expertise required for each project. Collectively, the panel will have solid working knowledge of public art and the medium under consideration for each project, an appreciation for community involvement, and be free of conflicts of interest or the potential for any financial gain from either the project or the purchase of specific artwork by the city. And according to the public art policy, the panel should include the following members. It should include the CTA Arts and Culture Program Manager, myself. It should include an artist or art professional or educator who's knowledgeable about the discipline, materials, and project scope. It should include a community member or members or facility user. And it should include members of the Cultural Commission. The public art process also will include technical advisors that can provide technical expertise that is specific to each project. And this will come from various city staff and departments. And in the case of certain projects, such as the Mark Twain mural, it also includes the expertise of a historian advisor. A public art inventory. The public art inventory is actually something that I have been working on in conjunction with the cultural asset map. In that inventory, I have not differentiated different categories of art, primarily because from the community's perspective, they're all public art. But technically, we really only have two artworks that are public art. That is city-owned artwork, and that's the Mind of Da Vinci and the Welcome to Carson City mural. Those are the pieces that should be on the city's asset register. All of the other works are in fact publicly viewable art on private property. They're not owned or maintained by the city, and they were created quite independently from the city and the processes that we'll be looking at. Unless, of course, in the future there's a public-private partnership for a new mural, which means that there will be some dialogue and negotiation on that.
You got an example of that, please?
An example of a public-private partnership. The actual Welcome to Carson City mural, the most recent one that was funded by the Rotary, that is in some ways an example of a public-private partnership, because even though that mural is owned by the city and will be maintained by it, there was a negotiation and agreement with the property owner that owns the building itself and with the Rotary, who in part were responsible for helping to oversee and to fund that mural project. So that's an example of a public-private partnership.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And finally, public art budget. Sources of funding are going to be determined for each project on a case-by-case basis. In some cases, the tourism 1% tax on lodging properties. Contributions can be made from that tax. If it's a project that's led by the city, it could come from other city funding. If it's a public works project, it might come from capital projects budget. We're also obviously going to be seeking grant funding wherever we can. And that's where funds such as the National Endowment for the Arts, Our Town project, is a key source of funding for public art, as well as a range of other funding from agencies and foundations. Additionally, if a project is private-public partnership, it may also seek donations, private donations and sponsorships from other sources for the project. And that's really my introductory presentation for the public art policy. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Dan and Jen.
I have a question about the money. Private donations that come. What account do they go into? Under which, where, how is that money preserved for arts? Nancy?
Hello,
Paulson.
Nancy Paulson, Carson City Manager. Those would go into a restricted fund in the city's accounting, and those are maintained as restricted funds. You know, they carry over from year to year.
But specifically earmarked
For
for,
that
so it can't
purpose.
go into the budget for the city for the year and so
That's
on.
correct. Yeah.
That's
We
what I
have many
was-
accounts that we have that are restricted for a specific purpose.
Just wanted it on the record. Okay, questions? Bethany?
For the record, Bethany Drysdale, and forgive me if I'm jumping ahead here, to the policy itself. Is this time for discussion on the actual policy itself? Or is that the next
No,
item?
not quite. I think
Okay.
if you can.
I will
it
hold.
off. Okay. Thank you, Deborah. Jen and Dan et al. Your turn.
For the record, Madam Chair, Ben Johnson, Senior Deputy District Attorney. Just to make clear, we're now moving on to agenda item 7B.
Okay,
Is that correct?
that's correct.
Sorry, 7A.
7A.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. Thanks to Deborah for that introduction and setting the stage for this item. That was very helpful. I want to thank Deputy City Manager Stephanie Hicks and Deborah Sewell for really taking the stab at this at first. They based it off of a sample from Boulder City, Colorado, which has a really robust public art program, and then they modified it to fit the city's needs, the strategic plan, and all the needs moving forward. So that's sort of where that all started. Some of these will be repeat for Deborah because I wasn't quite sure how robust that was going to be, so I apologize for any duplication. So Section 6.3 of the Arts and Culture Strategic Plan identified the need to create a policy for a public art program. The purpose of the policy is to establish procedures for acquisition and maintenance of public art on city-owned and managed lands and focuses on the tangible and intangible benefits of a public art program. The policy applies to art that is commissioned or acquired, both permanent and temporary, with all or partial city funds, is donated, is located in rights-of-way or other city land, and is accessible to the public. So those are the primary components or options available within the policy. The policy does not apply to art that you'd see in a city office or a temporary or one-time exhibit, something that wouldn't require such a robust process for something that wouldn't be permanent. Oversight of this policy is proposed through the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department, which is why I'm here. And that's where the budget was identified that the Board of Supervisors approved this position for the Recreation Supervisor for Arts and Culture. So it's geared for that person to oversee this whole process, be the consistency within that process, report back to you, coordinate technical advisory processes, and anything with that. They would be the link for everything within that process. And also would include the CTA and other stakeholders as necessary, but all through that Recreation Supervisor, Arts and Culture. The policy identifies potential funding sources, which is very critical with this program, such as redevelopment, the 1% transient lodging tax, city departments, community partnerships, grants, donations, ticket sales, we'll take the money. We're ready for it. So, and as the city manager mentioned, even in parks, we do have a dedicated donation account we can earmark for certain projects, certain facilities. We already have the capability to be able to do that. There are other restricted funds. If it was something very significant, we wanted to set that aside within the city's budget so it isn't lost or used for any other purpose. We have the ability to be able to do that.
A question on that point? This is 6.2G, tickets and sales. It says deposited in the general fund.
So the restricted accounts and that donation account funnels through the general fund, but it is in a component that's identified for that purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not set aside like an enterprise fund like we have for stormwater or the cemeteries. It's a part of the general fund, but earmarked for that purpose.
All right.
The policy identifies procedures and criteria for acquisition, selection and approval processes, which includes input from public art panels, and provides for technical review to ensure city processes and sustainable maintenance are considered. I do want to make a clarification on the public art panel component that Deborah mentioned. This is similar to how we handle requests for qualifications for, say we're putting out a proposal for design of tennis courts in one of our parks. We put out a RFQ, or request for qualifications, and potential design consultants will submit proposals or statements of qualification for that particular project. And then we have a group of individuals that will review those proposals, score them, and make their recommendations on the proposal. That is how the public art panel will work. Otherwise, it would be subject to open meeting law. We have to be very careful about appointed committees and subgroups and ad hoc committees and those processes. So just to clarify, that's really kind of the process we'll be going through. Otherwise, it would require clerk recorder time, it would require deputy district attorney time, and it would require a whole other slew of processes that are very cumbersome. We want to be able to act swiftly with these proposals and be able to move forward, and we don't want to add additional red tape that's not necessary. So I just wanted to make that clarification. So today, we really just would appreciate your feedback on the policy, how it's worded, does it work for you, the vision that you guys have all created through the strategic plan, and make sure that procedurally that it makes sense. So you have an understanding, and we want artists and partners that review this to have it make sense to them as well. And then Deborah and Stephanie are here as well, since they were the primary authors for this, although we had a lot of all hands on deck in reviewing it. I think they might be able to help provide some context if you need it as well.
Okay. And Dan, a comment from you in terms of your role. What will your function be in relation to this whole policy plan?
Dan Arp for the record, and I mean, it's kind of a new development for our department, so it's going to be ever kind of growing as we kind of learn our role, but primarily I'll be supervising this position as I do for all the kind of the recreation programs, kind of overseeing and assisting them in any way that they need, just kind of have the support from the whole department and the resources that we have as a department to go into helping them to fulfill their job objectives and goals and everything like that.
Yeah. Karen?
With regards to 61A, it talks about administrative roles of Parks and Rec position as it relates to the public art policy, and the word liaison is used to describe that collaboration with the CTA. It states that the CTA's Arts and Culture Program Manager will coordinate with the Recreation Supervisor on any such projects cited on city property, right-of-way, or facilities. Is there the expectation that the two positions will coordinate to discuss the scope of their potential roles at the start of each public art project? This is like a two-part question, so.
I think that's going to be hard to determine. Oh, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation
Okay.
Director. I think for the most part, the answer would be yes, but there's
Okay.
always going to be some exceptions where
Sure.
it would really be clear, like something in the middle of a park we might want to bring to the Parks and Recreation Commission for consideration. So I think there might be more than just those two individuals, but I think that's a great initial start. We want these two positions to really work cooperatively with each other and as a team.
Okay.
So that's what we're envisioning, but I do see there's probably some exceptions
Okay.
to that. But I think the policy should be a little bit broad so we can kind of work within that too.
Okay, and I think you answered the last part, because even if a project is entirely tourism-related, there could be aspects that could be improved through the collaboration. So I
Absolutely.
think that totally answers that question. Okay, I'll let somebody else. I have more, but.
Bethany?
Bethany Drysdale for the record. Please tell me if I missed it. I didn't see in here accessibility, like ADA accessibility for projects, and if that will be included in proposals for projects.
We would absolutely encourage that. Any accessible projects for all ages, all abilities is encouraged. I think that's really going to be looked at through that technical review process to make sure we can make sure that every citizen can either access that art safely and how that's going to work. It might include in the proposal how they expect to do that, or if we end up having to interview somebody, those are great follow-up questions to make sure we have.
I would recommend having that in the policy.
Okay.
Whether or not a piece of art can be accessible, a statement of why or why not, if they can't meet, and not just physical accessibility, but visual, hearing, everything.
Sure.
I think that should be spelled out in the policy.
It's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Karen?
One question I have is on 6.1C. The CTA component is referred to as a cultural tourism campaign. Do we need the word campaign? It seems, seems like here today and gone tomorrow. I guess that's my
Yeah.
feeling on
I
that one.
agree. Stan?
It should be ongoing, right?
Yes, it should be ongoing. That's my thinking. So if somehow that word can be omitted, that would be nice.
We could just say the development of cultural tourism.
Yeah, that's how I would look at that. And then on 6.2, the redevelopment funding section does not incorporate the recent amendment to the Arts and Culture Redevelopment Grant Program. It identifies events only, and it should include, that fund should be available for events and projects. So I think that needs to be added.
It's a good comment. Stan, do you have any?
Yes. Where am I here? Reference 4.2B, I guess. I really don't like the job title of Recreation Supervisor for an arts and culture position. I think we need to have something that more specifically identifies that position to arts and culture. And I would suggest we say arts and culture coordinator or project, I don't care what, but this does not give any significance to arts and culture. And I feel very strongly about that.
Okay. Nancy Paulson?
I think at this point, that is the position that got approved by the Board of Supervisors during the budget process as a supplemental request. And Jim can probably go into this a little bit more. It fits into, we have to follow the classification of the different employees within the Parks Department. And that's where they came up with the recreation supervisor.
So yeah, just to clarify, so Dan Art for the record, Recreation Superintendent. When we're adding a new position to our department, we really want to make sure it kind of fit into our organizational chart with titles and everything like that and how we work. And so the way in our department, we have a recreation supervisor over youth, and we have a recreation supervisor or manager over sports, and we have a recreation supervisor over aquatics. And so we kind of break down, and they all kind of have a similar title, but then they'll have their very large scope, different programs, whether that's youth aquatics, sports, outdoors, whatever those programs are, that kind of, differentiates that. And the other thing we want to make sure too is, because we have two separate entities that are working closely together on this with the CTA and us, we wanted to make sure that the titles were not so closely related in title between what the CTA's titles are and ours, so that we didn't want to cause confusion between the two, the CTA and the city. So we wanted to make sure it fit into our titles that we have within our organization, if that makes sense.
I have a quick comment on that.
Yeah.
Susan Mowers for the record. I don't know if, because for the state, like I'm the art director for the marketing department, that is not my box. The box that I have in through the state is project manager, blah, 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 blah. I don't even know. And so I agree with Stan, maybe especially if for recruiting, if someone is kind of in that art director or art overseeing program kind of a role, they might pass over looking at your job. So I don't know if that's just something where it's like, that's the official, because I'm sure on my official like paycheck, it has my official role. That's with the state, whatever the technical norm is, but like on my business cards, it says art director. So that might be a workaround, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well,
Stan and then Sierra.
for the record, Stan Jones, I don't recall us specifically identifying the title of the position. I think we identified the position would be in parks, which I don't like anyway, but that's, I don't remember us saying this would be specifically recreation supervisor.
That, the title was included on the supplemental request form, and I believe in the backup, did you guys have a sample job description?
We had that title listed, a sample job description that was approved by Human Resources Department. They also weighed in on the title based on the criteria that Dan said to fit in our structure. And then that supervisor level also gets sort of the pay that we want to try to be able to bring people in. So that is based on, a good vetting from the Human Resources Department. But it was approved by the Board of Supervisors, and that was in the supplemental request and on the org chart submitted with that.
Karen has a comment.
It's two. And then it occurred to me that arts and culture is recreation. So can this simply be equated under a listing? The recreation supervisor, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and arts and culture is part of all of that. So it is part of recreation. And so I think it just needs maybe just a further clarification. I'm not a wordsmither, but I'm thinking that's what all that need happen to make it clear.
I think it's worth, Barbara, making a comment to the Board of Supervisors that that's workable. It delineates who's doing what. And we have this position here, but in Parks and Rec, you have an art and culture component. And I think part of the problem from way back when was that wasn't really identified as a stand-up, actual division within the Parks and Rec that needed to have that kind of attention, arts and culture. So,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. It's very common for arts and culture to be with Parks and Recreation departments. It's a very common occurrence. City of Sparks has that. I work with a lot of agencies that have that component. Our park staff is very passionate about arts and culture programming, and we're really excited about the programming component in particular that this individual will have, because we feel like it's lacking within the city and with our programming. Another thing is the department's 5-year strategic plan. We've accomplished almost everything, and we're going to be doing an update to that. And I want to make sure that arts and culture is part of the department's strategic plan. So I see that as a good next step, but it will be an important part of what we're going to be doing, and we're here to support it.
thank you. Any other comments? Well, go ahead.
So the questions I have, and Jennifer, you alluded to this. You said actually Deb, you alluded to this too. Arts and Culture Program Strategic Plan is actually the roadmap for communication between the two departments. So what I want to make sure is that with respect to the implementation of the public art policy and all the arts and culture projects and programs between the city and CTA, that there is a discussion or direction provided on to advise on how the two positions will work together. So if there's a roadmap design. Now you alluded to it on the strategic plan, but it probably has to be a per project definition on how everybody's going to work together. That's my thought.
Do you want a certain section updated for that clarification?
Yes.
Is there a certain one you had in mind? I just want to make sure we're on the same.
Would be under administration.
Administration.
Yeah. Would let's see,
I agree.
find it again.
Do you want a sentence added to 6.1A?
Let's see.
Oh. Yes.
Yes,
Is that the right section?
yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. Because if it's not prescribed from the very beginning, I'm afraid, you'll lose communication depending on what a particular project is. And I want to make sure that, Deborah brings a wealth of knowledge, and whoever this new position is, and working together can do great things. So I think it's best to be defined from the outset. So just my thought on that. And then on the assets map that Deborah was talking about in her report, it was created in the CTA and on the visitor's website, but that could also be incorporated into the city website too. So, coordination in that aspect of things. Also, there's nothing on how the two positions will coordinate implementation of arts and culture strategic plan or how they'll work together to update it. So, as we go forward down the road, I've been here 12 years, so I know how this works. If we don't set up a roadmap for how that process is going to work, it becomes outdated and it becomes clumsy. So I just want to make sure that is clearly mapped. And then for the CTA staff's involvement in the Cultural Commission meetings, how that is going to be, is it two separate programs or one overall arts and culture program with two staff implementing the program? So who presents what? How do they do what? That kind of a thing. Just so it's clear.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and we can make sure we work that out. And that
Okay.
might be, so I don't want you to think this is like a one and done policy. I
Right.
think this is something that needs to be dynamic, and we
Yes.
have the staff person on, and they work with Deborah, and we coordinate, and they're going to identify, hey, this is working really well, but this section is not even realistic. We need to work on that. So I see this as a dynamic, good first step to try to create some kind of boundaries for them to work within and some guidance. But I think there will be changes, as we develop it.
So it's a living document.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And to me, I totally agree with all of these comments and remarks that are being made. But I think sort of how are folks getting together once a year, once a quarter, once a week, once a month, some sort of schedule so these two positions can work collaboratively and in a very friendly way. That's kind of what we're looking. That's what the commission is looking for, because we've played this game before, and we'd like to see it run smoothly and well and have good relations back and forth with all of the different entities that are going to be working together on arts and culture. Any other comments?
Yeah, Sierra Scott for the record. I love that it's a living document, but I do just want to applaud Deborah and everyone else that worked on it. But I know Deborah's really been passionately shepherding this through the process. I think it's a really thorough and well-written first draft that gives us a lot to work with. And we're already using it as a roadmap in the Mark Twain mural meeting. We had something to reference, which we've never had before when we're looking at public art. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much to Deborah. It was an exhaustive a problem for you to structure the way you did. And I think you brought to Carson City an enormous amount of expertise, talent, understanding of how to put together a successful arts program for a city. So our gratitude to you for the work that you've done. Okay. Where do we want to, any other comments or questions? Everybody happy at this point?
I just want to thank Stephanie too, because as assets manager,
Yeah.
you get that this has to happen. So, there's a process, and I'm glad to finally be here. It's exciting.
All of us, and I think Stephanie and the city manager, Nancy Paulson, the amount of time, energy, thought, and work that has gone into the last year and a half of putting all of this together has been nothing short of amazing. It's just, you've done a wonderful job, and thank you so very much for that. At this point in time, since we have this public policy, what are we going to do with it? What is our recommendation to the Board of Supervisors? So at this point, we will entertain a motion. Ladies and gentlemen.
I move, for the record, Bethany Drysdale, I move to accept the policy as a living document, able to be changed, but as proposed.
I second that.
Any other comments? Any comments from any of you people, for you folks?
I just have one,
just,
Deborah Soul here for the record. I just had one other comment, correction that I noticed as I was looking through the administration and funding section. There's another entry, 6.2.b, that uses the terminology, a cultural tourism campaign. So if we're going to change the one, we should change them both.
Okay, change it. Point. Okay. And Jen, did you have a comment to make before we vote?
Just to make sure the motion is with the changes that we discussed.
Yes.
Just want to clarify.
That's acceptable to them. Okay. And to you?
And to myself as well.
Okay. On the motion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? You have total agreement. Congratulations, and you have your work cut out for you in the future. And we are here to help. And the commission is here to help you, not only to, talk with the city and take issues to them, but to be helpful to you, because you have some talented people here who have been involved in arts and the development of arts and culture in Carson for over 12 years. So pick brains, we're here for you. All right, thank you. Boy, that was easy and done. We are now on item number 7, Cultural Commission, City Manager's Art and Culture Report.
I don't have a whole lot to report under this. I just wanted to thank you all. It's been wonderful working with the Cultural Commission over, I can't even remember what it's been now, 2 years or so.
18 months, 18, 19 months.
And I'm
something
happy
like
to
that?
pass the torch over to the Parks and Rec Department. So I'll still be around though.
Okay. Oh, I see the position all the way through this document. Yes, we know the city manager will be around. And we thank you, because it's wonderful for us to know that you have an understanding of arts and culture. A lot of city managers don't. So you being immersed in it for so long, you've learned a lot about it, and thank you for your time. Okay, that's your whole report?
That's it.
Wow, okay. Moving right along, commissioner reports, comments. Karen?
The Greenhouse Project, of course. First of all, our Grow It Forward campaign will end the end of this month, and we've had, fortunately, this is how far horticultural arts reach. Our match donors from Reno. So a blessing for our community, and so very grateful for that. And our Grateful Harvest Dinner is coming up September 19th. I'm very excited. We are down to 67 tickets left to sell, so out of 150, which is great, and almost completely sponsored, so that is fantastic. So this will be held at our new Nashville Social Club here, and Tony Schaefer will be doing the menu, and we will actually have music, which is something that the Greenhouse Project, when we did our concert Under the Stars, always incorporated music, so it's back. Thank you.
That's really exciting. Going to
Oh,
be a
and if you
fun-
want to buy
a fun
tickets,
evening. Yes.
775-232-8626. That's my number. Call me.
The price is?
$275 per person.
Per person.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful evening. It's excellent meal and entertainment, food and so on, and raffles and fun stuff.
Silent auction, raffles, all of it. So it's fantastic. And we have a very generous community that I'm thankful for.
Sierra Scott. Wild Horse Productions was really excited to partner with CTA. We represented Carson City in the Pride Parade in Reno over the weekend, which was the first time we've done that. It was a great turnout. We had dancing and singing through the streets of Reno, representing Carson, so that was great. And then also, we are putting up a chorus line right here at the Community Center, the Bob Bulger Theater, last 2 weekends of August, and I will be on stage. So please come see it, I think.
Oh, that is marvelous. Marvelous, wonderful.
For the record, Bethany Drysdale, several meetings ago, we awarded grants. The the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame exhibit is now open. So exciting to see a grant being used, something that we can actually go see right now, instant gratification. The Vintage Market as well was a recipient of a grant, and that is really, really a cool thing. If you haven't been down to that, I think everybody here probably has, probably preaching to the choir, but it's very gratifying to see these grants in action and see what they can do for our community. So I encourage everybody to go check those out.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to. While I know I do have an item I want to bring up. Maya Angelou, I know that is not a piece that belongs to the city. However, it exists and it was damaged. Has it been fixed? Well, I've got to go by and look at it. And so they're like, this was cracking and so on and so on. Do we know what's going to go on? Is that just going to stay where it is? Is that going to be a gift to the city? Do we know? We don't know anything. It just sits.
Brad.
It's Brad and
Andy bought it.
Andy bought it.
Yes,
And that's where it's going to live there.
right now, it's their property. Yes.
Okay, very interesting. But I thought that was kind of sad and unfortunate, and I'm glad that I'll go by on my way to Piazza and take a look at it. Is it? Oh, good. That was just, what a shock to see that happen. And that kind of thing shouldn't happen in Carson. Thank you very much. All right, future agenda items. I'm going to bring up what the mayor brought up, and that's the cemetery and the trash containers and having an art contest with youth to design something to fix the looks of the trash collection bins in the cemetery. I brought that up for a future, at least some discussion on it. Jen, is there anything you want to add? I don't even know if you know about this or not. Well, they have those old oil drums in the cemetery. It's like, yeah. So the mayor's suggestion was, well, why don't you have a contest? And the commission sponsored that one and get youth or something when school starts up again to have a little contest about designs to put on those. So I'm just saying we're going to hear about it in the future. I just want to have you prepared.
And Barb, we might incorporate that with the Day of the Dead.
Oh, isn't that cool? That's a really good idea.
Saying.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, I don't know. I don't want it to just drop here unless we have a conclusion of we are going to do something with this or just forget about it. But I just hope we continue with this. It really does need to look better over there. Yes, Nancy?
And it just so happens that Jen supervises the cemetery.
The cemetery. Yay! Oh, gosh. Well, I know that the mayor has found. Harvey, can you get Rotary to help us? But anyway, we really, do care about the looks over there and happy to do anything that we can. Okay? All right, upcoming meetings and events. What's the pleasure? This is July, August, September. What are we going to be doing?
I have a suggested meeting date. They actually have this room already scheduled out for September 12th, if that works. It's a Monday. It's hard sometimes because CTA meeting is right before, so I'll see if they can shorten the meeting.
Well, I kind of would like some suggestions of what are we going to be doing at this meeting and talking about? I mean, we'll be far enough along, do you think, by September 12th to have a new person in place? I don't want to have a meeting if we don't have something to do. I don't know. Does everybody else feel that way too? Okay. So come on.
Push it out.
It's your suggestions here. What do you want to talk about? Why would we meet?
Deborah Soul here for the record. One of the items could be an update for the Mark Twain mural project.
Okay. Date on Mark Twain. Good.
On the cemetery, garbage cans is a good topic, and having a discussion up here, having it on the agenda and a brainstorming session would be valuable if that's the pleasure of the board.
Well, would that also be the pleasure of Parks and Rec? Would you like to have that as an agenda item for just getting some feedback in terms of what we're all thinking? Okay, 'cause we don't want to have anything where you're not aware and we're not aware. We all need to be working together on this one for the advancement of arts and culture in this city.
Sierra Scott, I think that whenever that position comes into play, that main topic would be strategic priorities for the coming year with the collaboration with CTA and Parks.
Do you think that person is going to be up to speed that quickly, that fast to, whoa, is this more a learning experience for this person with staff, with both entities, and then come, well, first of all, we want to meet the person, and then we want to know, what marching orders has that person been given? What's the content and objectives that this person is going to have? Is that what y'all would like to have and talk about? I don't know if it's premature or not. Oh, so September doesn't sound like it's going to be the time. You don't think so? Well,
October.
let's go into October. October and then December. Yeah. Okay, it works.
To make sure the room's available.
Oops.
We don't get Columbus Day off. It's not one of the city's holidays. Yeah. We can add one.
Okay.
Is CTA on the 10th? The 11th?
The 11th work for you?
That works. So the 11th at 5:30? Especially if they want to do something with Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead. Maybe we can get Lupe Ramirez to help us with the Day of the Dead. She served on this board, and she knows all the folks in town, all the artists, everybody in town. That would be a fun thing to do. So I understand this. This next meeting, alas, adieu to Nancy, but we will have Parks and Rec. We'll have Jen. We'll have Dan. We'll have hopefully the new person. Stephanie, you're always welcome to come, and I would hope that Deborah, you would also be coming. This is a collaborative. I think everybody sitting up here is really excited about having a collaboration between these two entities. I think it has great promise in the future. Everybody okay with that? Okay, anybody want to make any public comment at this point in time before we adjourn the meeting? If not, meeting is adjourned.